The Blackbirds, a true crime podcast about the dark souls that roam among us. Hosted by Abby and Janet.
Yeah, I think we should. It's been a minute.
Took me an hour to set this up, probably a little bit, and half a bottle of wine.
Probably a little bit more.
Probably, definitely a little bit more. But, so we talked, and we're gonna do Ed Kemper.
Yes. That is what we're doing.
It is. Who we are doing, the co-ed killer, which makes sense of the nickname, but it always, irritates me because it just, he didn't go to college.
Technically, he went to community college for a minute.
Did he?
Hot minute. Yeah.
It was a hot minute?
It was a part of his parole when he was 21 and released. Mm-hmm. So it was, part of his parole was that he would go to community college, so he did.
Back in the day, you didn't have to have a GED to go to college.
Nope.
No?
No, but I think he did do some sort of schooling. And he was near genius status.
Well, I was listening to Killer Jobs, and they said that he dropped out at 10th grade.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people, some of the smartest people are in prison because they just don't fit into society.
They can't quite conform, and they don't fit in a typical school setting. If a child has an IQ at one point, it was 136, and then later it was tested at 145, he's going to be way too bored in a traditional classroom, which causes students to act out or do other things, or their brains function just so differently sometimes. And, we don't know what else was going on in his brain. He was diagnosed with several different things.
Yeah, I mean, he was really smart, but he had a lot going on at home, too. I don't know if any of that had, but it's just crazy for how smart he was and, how incredibly awful his parents were. I mean, and it's weird because you don't ever hear anything about his sisters. They're obviously still alive, if not kind of dead.
Yeah, they most likely had full lives. They probably changed their names.
Mm-hmm. I would have changed my name. I don't know if I would have changed my name.
Well, if they were women, they were older than him, so they may have already been married. Mm-hmm. And back then, most married women did change their name.
Most. BTK's daughter's still around, interviewed and stuff. I don't know if I'm that brave.
I wouldn't be.
No.
No, I like to just do my own thing.
Please do not relate me to anything that my family does. I don't want to.
I'll make my own mistakes. I'm good, thanks. I screw this up all on my own.
Yeah, I don't want to be known for anybody else's rights or wrongs. But, yeah, he super interesting. So that's why they also, really make note of him, is because he, as seen in Mindhunters, is, the FBI's original main source of, the mind of serial killer. And he helped them out a lot, kind of just get in the heads of different cases, and he just would replay everything in his head like it was just yesterday. It was just always a constant memory. And then in Killer Jobs, they also talked about how he just was super smart, but he knew that he was smart, so he controlled it so well.
Well, I was reading about how when he was, before he was 21, when he was in prison for the murder of his grandparents, he would help administer psychiatric tests. And he was basically...
No, you're right. No,
sorry, she was shaking her head no, and I was like, oh,
no, you're right. It's wild that, prison inmates used to be able to take such advantage of just... people because they were nice.
He was in more of a psych center, so it wasn't so much prison. And
That's
it was
true.
in prison back then, at least, more so than today, I would say, was still geared a little more towards rehabilitation when you're 16.
The mental standpoint was just so much more in the beginning phases. It didn't have a lot of ill will towards it, and it actually had resources available. Where now it's okay, you have a mental issue, just throw you up into a mental hospital as opposed to in prison. They don't acknowledge it as much.
No, or they'll just throw you in prison.
Yeah.
You don't even get the mental hospital half the time anymore. So, and half the people in mental hospitals don't even need to be there. They need something else. Mm-hmm. But he was administering the tests, and they would use them in these places to, try out new testing and things like that. And he learned how the tests worked, and that's how he learned to manipulate them.
Yeah, he memorized them. He
memorized the tests. He knew what they were looking for. He knew how a normal person was supposed to act.
Yeah.
And then because he knew these tests, it gave him more and more knowledge about serial killers in general. And then it helped him when he did things. Like, he knew to take the bullets that he used to kill his victims. He knew to take the bullets out because then it couldn't be traced to his gun.
Jesus. Yeah. Except the only thing they told him they said to not do and released him was to send him back to his mom. And they sent him back to his mom.
Because where else was he going to go? Anywhere but there.
Anywhere but his mom's house.
But that's because the root of the problem was his mom.
Oh, yeah.
The root of the problem, so taking it, back to his childhood, when his mom and dad separated, he went with his mom.
Right.
And, little boys, they want to go with their dad. And he looked up to his dad. He was named after his dad, right?
Right.
So, he was the third. That's right. Yeah. So he was the third. So he was separated from his dad. Mm-hmm. But then his mom treated him as if he was his dad.
Right.
In all the negative aspects that led to a divorce. Imagine that on a child.
Yeah. You're talking about Ed Gein's mom. Like, his childhood was kind of similar, where his mom was just overbearing, and even though Ed Gein loved his mom, Ed Kemper, she was just so much all the time, like, always just putting him in a corner. Like, she threw him literally into the basement away from his sisters because she thought something was wrong with him. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're like your father, and it's like, it's a terrible male role model, and then you're just saying that you're nothing like it.
And then when he does go to his father, he gets rejected.
Right.
So, the root of the problem was mom. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, his issues stemmed from his mother. And the right call when he had that first outburst would have been to just have him lead his life somewhere else. Who knows what would have happened.
Or maybe it wouldn't have been so much angst towards women.
Yeah. Or, having the root of the problem identified early on may have been beneficial.
Yeah.
But, you look back on these things and now we know the trends of, how parents can affect their kids and, the role that it plays in the trends, like head injuries and, overbearing mothers, but they didn't really know this back then.
No, and I found it super interesting that, like, he killed his grandma first and then killed his grandpa so he didn't have to see it, and then took that break and then murdered women, and then his mom, and then that's when he got, like, I don't know if he got the chills or what happened, because he killed his mom, he killed his mom's friend, and then just stopped.
Well, I think he felt done. He felt fulfilled. He was chasing something. It's like, how a lot of people, they're chasing that feeling of happiness, and it's that idea that, if we buy the big house and this and that, we'll feel happy. He was chasing something that had to do with mom. Yeah. Which is what leads me to believe that whoever diagnosed him as paranoid schizophrenic as a child, or a teenager, may have really been onto something there and should be reconsidered, or should have been reconsidered, because I think he felt this need to fulfill it, and he didn't necessarily want to kill his mom. So maybe in his mind, killing these other women, he was chasing that feeling, but he was never going to get that feeling. Obviously.
Well, there had to be some other aligning thing as well as the schizo, like a multiple personality disorder of some sort.
I read somewhere that they thought that's what his mom had.
Which would explain why his switch was so on and off all the time.
But he was also so intelligent.
Yeah.
That there's something else in play there, He's got... He knows right from wrong, but yet clearly he doesn't care. But then...
No emotional or moral compass. It's just turned off.
Yeah. It's almost like he's too smart for his own good. and he was huge. He was 6'9". I don't know how that hasn't been mentioned yet. He's a real life giant.
Lovable giant.
Yeah. Well, maybe not like lovable, but
I just think, yeah, he had a hard time being like, he was a lovable person and he manipulated himself accordingly, but he didn't reciprocate that onto women. Like, it just wasn't, it didn't click with him.
Maybe he just didn't understand how women played a role in his life. Because his mom kept him from his sisters. So he didn't really know how they were. And she just yelled at him and said, "You're like your father," and, abused him.
I don't know. There's something, maybe it's because there wasn't anything taught in him to, like, respect women or understand what a relationship with a woman was. And so he just took that as, like, women are bad. I don't know. He just found maybe it was because he was smart. He just found so many good ways to manipulate a relationship with a woman other than his mom. Because, like, he understood that, like, girls liked nicer guys or dorky guys. Like, he got bigger glasses because he wanted to be, like, recognized as, like, a nerd, like, weird dorky guy who just wanted to just be friends with somebody or wanted to just give somebody a nice ride. And he just took advantage of that situation, studied it, and then that's how he started picking up girls.
He's almost like an anthropologist, like studying the culture,
right,
and figuring out the best way to attain his goal.
Because, I mean, it was the 70s. Like, he had every right to be a hippie and go do everything that everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
Super strange.
Doing what he wanted to do, but one thing that I found really interesting was that he was in a car accident.
Oh, yeah, when he was
he was hit by a car.
Yeah, he was on duty being a highway patrolman, which isn't quite a cop, which is what he really wanted to be.
But he was too tall.
I don't know how that works. Maybe state versus federal permissions?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
Yeah, but he was on patrol and hit by a car.
And he got a $15,000 settlement payment, which he bought his car with.
And I looked up the inflation rate for that. And in 2019's money, that would be $106,154.79.
You can get, like, 3 nice cars for that money now.
That is, like, half of my house.
That is so much money for getting in an accident.
Well, and it wasn't like he was severely injured.
Right.
Necessarily. Like, he wasn't off the job. Not saying he doesn't deserve money for being hit in medical and stuff. But because he was such a big dude and the way he was hit, it was just his arm. And I think it was something that, he was able to move past decently quickly.
Yeah.
So, he bought a 1969 Ford Galaxy with the money.
That he ended up murdering people in.
And taking advantage of the lots of trunk space.
Very, very large trunk space.
Very large trunk space.
Oh.
But, yeah, it was just an interesting story. And, like, I don't know, sometimes you just had, like, almost compassion for him where I was like, if at this point, I feel like that was a cry for help. That was a cry for help. Like, if he was never released at 21 and just got to live in that asylum where he could not hurt anyone his whole life, like, I just felt like there were so many opportunities where it was like a silent cry for help or like something where he was trying to convey that he was having issues.
Oh, yeah.
But he just didn't know how, and, I mean, nowadays I do believe that something like this would be picked up.
You think so?
I'd hope so.
You would hope so.
Gotta be a little optimistic about because my husband won't move to Canada with me, so I'm stuck here.
I don't know, because there's characteristics in people that all, like, serial killers, for instance. Like, they always, most of the time, have overbearing moms or moms that are just straight bitches. And then you think of, like, people that have, like, for instance, the like, mass shooters. It's typically, like, they're from a loving home, but sometimes it's also overbearing, or their dad's not a figure, or church is so much to them. Like,
or heavy pressure.
Yeah, and it's just weird that characteristics is typically, like, you're not going to blame like you said, like, if you don't have a parent in the picture, it doesn't mean you're going to kill people. Just because you have a mom who's a prostitute doesn't mean that you're going to go kill prostitutes. Like, there's no reason for you to live a life because of something that happens in your life. But unfortunately for him, that's what happened.
Well, he's a product of what he was given.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't really know any better, and there was something off. There was something off, but...
I mean, he played electric chair with his sisters. I mean, that was...
And gas chamber.
And gas chamber.
Yeah. That was his idea of fun.
The war was over.
Yeah.
Why are we playing gas chamber?
That was his idea of fun, and, but he also, like, he knew, I wouldn't say he was empathetic, but at the same time, it's like he knew what empathy was, and he knew what a guilty conscience was. I don't think he had it.
I don't think he had a conscience.
But I think he knew what it was, and he was supposed to have it, because he basically turned himself in.
Yeah.
And he called, and he was like, it isn't worth it. And it's like, that is a sign of having a conscience, but I still don't think you have one.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know you have to have one. So it's like playing the part.
He wanted it to stop. Like, he knew it was wrong, and he knew he had no control over it, which I think is why, like, his mom and his mom's friend were, like, the final straw, because, like, the anger was done. Like, it was over with.
Well, the manner in which he treated his mother's remains is very telling of how he felt about his mom.
Yeah. Yeah. That was rough. And...
let's just say he likes to behead women, do things with their head, and hers was unrecognizable by the end.
Hers was... he bashed her head in. Like, could you imagine a 6'9" man bashing a human skull in so many times that it just is unrecognizable?
Yeah. It was bad. But then he killed her friend, and after that, he drove, and I think he just kind of realized, like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's over. Like,
well, he didn't get caught. There was no even, like, he's like, there's no chase. There's nothing. Like, I would have been just gone. Like, most people would have not turned themselves in. Like, there was a reason.
No, because his whole life was centered around his mom.
Right.
And he needed to get away from his mom, and then he did, and it was like, well, I'm gonna get caught. He probably knew he was eventually gonna get caught. Obviously, it was him.
Right.
With his mom, so he knew he was gonna get caught, and I don't think he cared. I think a part of him maybe wanted to be caught, because he knew if he was locked up like he was before, he couldn't kill anyone, and he was seemingly enjoying the manipulation and all the stuff with the tests.
Yeah, he definitely enjoyed it.
Maybe some part of him wanted to go back. And now I'm just speculating.
He knew he couldn't go back.
No.
Not back to the house.
No. Oh, no, I mean back to the asylum he was in when he was a teenager.
Well, he had to know that he was going to jail.
Yeah. Well, no, he wanted to die. Remember, he asked for the electric chair. He asked for torture.
Well...
but California wasn't doing that at the time.
Yeah. I think.
No, they're still not. So,
yeah.
He is 70 years old and still kicking.
Oh, man. Do you think he still talks to FBI and, like, helps them out?
Well, it did say he had, I believe, a stroke,
really?
in recent years, or 2015. So, he no longer had any of his jobs. So, I don't know if he would be, like...
given, like...
it depends on the severity of the stroke. There's no...
I wonder if there's people that still meet with him.
I would assume so.
Maybe. Probably. Because I think you have to be on death row in order to not have visitors. Or is it... you don't know.
I wouldn't know, sorry.
No, you're okay.
I don't know.
I don't know, I would assume something like that.
But, I don't know. He's just an interesting case of, like, all the typical things, but then a few, like, atypical things thrown in there. You know, he's got the triggers. Who knows, maybe, like, him getting hit by that car, he probably hit his head. Like, maybe that was the last screw loose.
Maybe. Because he bought the car afterwards, so either he just... Because I don't remember him getting any other jobs after he got to that accident.
No, not that I know of. Because $15,000 at that time was a lot of money.
And then if you are stuck with your mom in that house... No.
Yeah, with all the resentment and all
I don't even want to move back with my parents, and I can't easily work on my own, or not work. I don't know. But I couldn't imagine being a grown-ass man moving in with my parents.
Not at 6'9", no.
Nope.
He's so tall.
Thrown in the basement.
But, yeah, it's just he's got, the typical, traits. The mom, the kind of fit in but didn't fit in, outcast,
Probably made fun of at one point.
For his height. He
Yeah.
was easily made fun of. Kids make fun of anything.
It's gotten, worse.
It's gotten way worse, man.
Especially with social media. They're just awful.
It's absolutely terrible.
Well, I think we did a good episode for our first episode.
I think so too. And we promise to be better next time.
Bye!
See ya!